Today you want to buy a house. What's one of the first things the lender's going to ask you? Got a job? What does it pay? Well, you're less likely to have a job today, and it doesn't pay as much as it used to, in real terms. When you adjust for inflation, incomes today are lower than they were 10 years ago. Oh, man. Do they have any good news, Fred? Maybe. We'll find out. Colorado Springs. So the net effect is we'll have fewer people working, but we have more people moving here. Sales tax revenues in absolute terms are lower today than they were in 2007. When I adjust for population and inflation, the city of Colorado Springs has about 20 cents on the dollar less today per person than it did in 2000. Now, I'm not saying you should raise taxes, but you guys have to decide. But I always believe that if you endow the city with certain responsibilities, then it's your responsibility to make sure it has the money to deliver those things. So what's been keeping us afloat? I kind of like this slide because it's color coordinated. The blues are the Air Force installations. And the khaki color is Army, Fort Carson. All right. If you go back here to 2000, which we don't have the data set for, but if you go back to 2000, the total military presence in the community was around 30,000. Throw in 1,000, 2,000 people, civilians working on the base, you had 32,000 people there. Today we're at 62,000. Employed. Gee, if the private sector just doubled employment, well, would we be even here today? No, we wouldn't be here. The military has been phenomenal. RACO 5 was the golden ring that kept us afloat. We went from, in 2005, we had this low 40 range. All of a sudden, we're now in this low 60 range. We added almost 50% of the numbers of military compared to where we were. Now, the military is important for this reason. It's a service sector as far as we're concerned. They create what we call indirect, little bit, but more likely induced jobs. An induced job is people in the military go out and spend money in the community buying shirts, gasoline cars, TVs, etc. Retail jobs, local resident services. These things tend not to pay too well. And you don't get a lot of bang for the buck in terms of multiplying through the system. Roughly speaking, for every military job in the community, we get about 0.8 civilian jobs in the community. What's important here is we increased 20,000 military-related positions in the last several years. We have 16,000 people working in town right now because of the military growth. If the military didn't grow, where would unemployment be? Well, it's the private sector that's not doing its end of the job, if you ask me. Here's the military expenditures, the allocations. The highest allocation goes to Fort Carson, $3.32 billion. This is a 2009 number. This comes into sense, anyone can get a hold of it, by the way. Next largest is the Air Force. If you put it all together, the military spent about $10 billion in 2009. The federal government, not the military, excuse me. Federal government about $10 billion in the community in 2009. So I then said, as a percentage of GDP locally, what is that? This is a slight variation on GDP. It's what we call a final demand model. Not important how we get there. But what it comes down to is the county as a whole generated about $26 billion in GDP. Roughly half of that was military. Where would we be if the military weren't here? Here's the thing I keep telling everyone, and no one listens. We're importing cars because they don't make them here, TVs because they don't make them here. I understand they probably never will make those things here. But are we importing anything that might be made here? Sure. Everyone wants to think exotic. I think simple. My wife and I built our house here. It had a tile roof on it. We went out looking for tile roof, picked the colors, etc., designs you wanted. We did, we found, take that one. Wasn't a difference in price. We just liked the look of it. Was it made here in El Paso County? No. Was it made in Colorado? No. Was it made in the Rockies? No. It was made in California. That doesn't just fry your butt. Why can't I make that here, ship it along the Front Range in the Rockies, as well as to California? If they can ship it here and make $1, why can't we? We keep thinking about, got to get these technology jobs. I said, just get a job that exports its goods and services. Why not do that? Why don't we get a company extruding copper pipe? Do you have any idea how much copper pipe goes into a house? We don't have to do crazy things. You can identify these things, and in fact, I have identified these things in the past, and no one pays attention to them. Why? I give it away. next time you want me to do it, bring a really big checkbook, and don't even ask how much it's going to cost, because you're going to value it at the end of the day. It's going to be so expensive. Say, no, yeah, well, trust me. Budget Control Act of 2011, major headache for us. The Committee of 12, they have to agree. They're not going to agree. Half the budget cuts will come out of the military. Given the role of the military in this community, we don't want to see that happen. Projections. This is from the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment and the Colorado Division of Local Governments, demographic people. They're saying population is going to grow real nicely. Jobs, though, not growing real nicely. We're going to add about 125,000 people and 23,000 jobs by 2019. Anyone want to guess what the unemployment rate is going to be? Just to keep employment, the unemployment rate to the historical average, we need to add close to 60,000 jobs during this time period. Not going to come from the military. We're guaranteed that with this Budget Control Act. It's got to come from the private sector. If we don't get the population growth demanding housing stock, what's going to happen to the value of your housing? Not going to go up. Anyway, that's the growth numbers. 115,000, I said 123,000. 115,000 increase in population projection, job growth projection. Well, they sometimes say, well, yeah, but it's because all the seniors, the baby boomers, they're going to be retired. Labor force participation among seniors right now is 25%. The projection is it's going to go to 30%. Why? Unemployment, Social Security is not enough to take care of their expenses. More of them are going to be looking for work. They're not reducing the size of the labor force. They're going to increase as a participation rate and as a base number. They need jobs. And so we've got to find jobs for everyone. Employment projections by various categories. And again, this is not my set of numbers. This comes from labor and employment. And what I want to pay attention to particularly is information and manufacturing, wholesale to some extent. And these are the economic multipliers associated with them. We only have 3 areas that are actually calling for decreases in employment. And the one that's most interesting to me is this information technology, the data processing area. The thing that we used to have thousands upon thousands of jobs, and we've lost a number of them. Here are the multipliers for these categories, and what you really want to pay attention to is information, manufacturing, and wholesale. When you put them together, they have higher employment, income, and tax multipliers than the average. And if these are going to be decreasing, what's going to happen to the average multiplier in the future? It's going to decrease. What's the multiplier? The company hires someone, how many more jobs are spun off because of that? Someone gets paid a salary, how much more income is spun off because that person starts spending that income? Taxes, the company pays taxes, how much more taxes in the community are spun off because of the economic activities going on? That's the multiplier. So we ran a scenario analysis. The blue one is 2009, current state of the art, if you will, in terms of where we are in the economy. And right now we have an average tax multiplier of 4.52. If we do nothing, and it unfolds exactly as labor and employment projects, the multiplier for tax is going to increase slightly to 4.56. But if you just keep jobs, I'm not even saying grow the jobs in manufacturing, in data processing, telecommunications. If you just keep the number of jobs, you would have a tax multiplier of 4.69. This is important to the city, the county, the state. Yeah, very important. Employment numbers also improve in terms of the multipliers. Compensation numbers improve also. Now, this is really interesting. This is just the city of Colorado Springs, 2% general sales tax. If we do nothing, we're projected about a $800 million, an $800,000 increase in general sales tax for the city. If we just keep the jobs, it can actually be $4 million. Can the city use $4 million? From what I hear, there's a discussion about the budget this morning. How'd you like to have $4 million in your budget right now? By the way, in terms of the general fund amount, that represents about 3.5% of the general fund. Oh, that would be nice to have. Employment projections, if we do nothing and things stay as they are, you lose these high multiplier jobs. What happens? You lose jobs as a result of this. So we're going to lose jobs if you just keep the jobs. And even grow the current numbers in manufacturing and telecommunications, we would see job growth. This is kind of important since we're projecting a huge shortage of job growth by 2019 anyway. Income projections, if left alone, it'll increase to about $91 million. If we just keep the jobs, we increase income to about $200